back out at Moody High School again for the Writer's Block podcast on location. Today with Dr. Christopher Walters, principal here at Moody High School. Appreciate you taking the time, and we're going to talk maybe a little non-sports this time. So thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, no, we appreciate you coming out, man. We're so excited about what you've been able to do. I've watched you grow in my 17 years here in Trustful, and you know you've done such a great job growing your brand and growing. And we're just glad that Moody's a part of that story.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I mean, you were at did we cross over when I was writing stuff? When were you at Hewitt Trustful High School?
So I started at Hewitt in 2008, and I was there for 7 years. So I coached a little bit of baseball, but Howard Riddle sat me down my first day on the bus and looked at me and said, "I've heard you play sports." Yes, sir. I said, "Well, you're gonna be helping us with football this year." So so he gave me a job, and that's where I first met you. I was hanging out recording and running huddle for Coach Riddle and Coach Partridge.
Wow, what was your title with football?
Video recorder, I believe
Video
it was.
recorder.
So I just showed up 2 or 3 days a week and recorded practice, and then entered in huddle.
Wow, that's a big job these days. My gosh.
Yeah, it's huge. It's we were on the front end, so I would show up on Friday nights and record and sit in the press box and make sure it was with we were finally coming out of the lifts, the scissor lifts. So they got in the camera. So I would sit in the press box and enter it real time in huddle. And so then I'd go back and enter all the plays, because I don't know enough about football except for 4 verticals. So they'd give me the list of plays and the scripts, and I'd go in and enter before I left. So when they showed up Saturday morning, this huddle was completely done and ready to go.
That's awesome. What did you taught? I know you started an academy at Hewitt Trustful, right? What bio? I can't remember.
Yeah, so the Biomedical Science Academy.
That's right.
And so it was really neat. You know, you got to start something from the ground up. So we used Project Lead the Way, and they hired me in that summer and said, "Hey, we want you to grow this thing," and it was really kind of cool to do. It set me on a good path of how to build, how to grow, how to make something happen, and I was real blessed with the kids. We had just phenomenal kids, but just getting to be able to be on the front of it, because we were the first one in the state at that time. So Auburn was all in, Alabama was all in, Jeff State, everybody was ready to help grow, and so it was really neat to do.
Yeah. How'd you get the job here? You came here in 15, right?
Correct. So I was, Miss Kite was the assistant principal at Trustful when I was there, and she'd come over here, and Mr. Smitherman, the assistant principal before me, had gotten the job at Locust Fort.
Okay.
And so I'd been interviewing a little bit, and I needed some things to work out. I had a young kid, and I needed to be able to get in, and where my wife was in her career at the time. And so I came out and met with Cheryl, and she offered me the job, and then I've been here for now 10 years.
Wow. That was another, I think Cheryl was maybe my 4th grade teacher or something.
She taught all over the place. And she was phenomenal, man.
Yeah.
She was awesome as a mentor, but I've heard in the classroom she was just unreal. She would tutor kids in math up here, and I mean their math scores are going up 3, 4, 5 points.
My gosh. So you came over as an assistant principal?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, and so there was I was the assistant principal for 3 years. I had left at that time in St. Clair. The assistant principal was only 9 months.
Okay.
And so there was a 2-week window where I left. So after that 3rd year, Dr. Pouncey and Mike Turner reached out, and so I had been hired at Pinson.
Yeah.
And I was there for about 3 days. Got to meet Kool-Aid and Bo Nix and all those guys, and Coach Nix, and the principal that was here, Cheryl retired. Another principal came in, and she was going to a board position.
Okay.
So I was there, I think, a total of 3 days at Pinson. Was excited about it. I think Mike Turner does a phenomenal job, so I was excited to learn from him. But just felt like home, and wanted to come back and see what I could do.
Yeah. Has it been a really good decision?
It has been, man. It's been awesome to grow and watch the growth in this community. It reminds me so much of Trustful, and the way the growth is happening and what the expectations are happening academically, athletically. So yeah, it's been really neat to watch.
was Moody why is it the right fit for you? Why has it been?
The big things are willing to work, and that's just all I know is show up, work, do your job, and try to get better, try to get 1% better every day.
Right.
And so it's been just, I love watching and helping build.
Yeah.
And so we've been able to come in. When Ms. Kai came in, the focus had to be academically. That's just what needed to happen.
Sure.
And so I got to come in on the back end of that. Well, academically, we were starting to get better. So it was, okay, well, how do we expand this ceiling? How to expand the expectations to the classroom, to the teachers, to the community? And so it's been fun because the city's gotten on board.
Yeah.
It's not just been a school doing their thing.
It's big, yeah.
So all the schools have now gotten on board. The city council, the people, they've all wanted to get on board, and so you've been able to grow this thing to the point where we're building a new building, which is kind of neat.
How is Moody like? I lived here for 4 or 5 years, family out here, so I've come to Moody forever, and a lot of the things that I've seen since I was a little kid are still exactly the same. But in your 10 years here now, how is Moody? How have you seen it, kind of things that have stayed the same and some things that have changed?
Yeah, so it's, obviously some of the buildings are the same, right? But it's the mindset that is changing, and once the mindset of the community changes, you'll start to see those industry all the way down to now that the city council has put in. We've got an industrial park going in, we've got an entertainment center going in, so you're starting to see some of those things. But one of the biggest changes that I've seen is when I first got here was a lot of, we kept getting the argument of, why is the elementary school so big and why aren't they ever getting to the high school, right?
Yeah.
And so then we started really looking, and you realize, well, Moody had a bunch of starter homes, essentially, 2 and 3 bedroom. Same problem that y'all would have had.
Yeah.
Your family expands, and where are you going to go? Well, there's nowhere in Moody to go.
That's right.
And so the city has done a really good job of saying, okay, well, let's get bigger homes. We've got 4 and 5 bedroom homes going in, and so you can get now a family home that's now a permanent home. So now they'll matriculate all the way to the high school, which is also now helping our schools in the sense that you've got a really good mixture of people that just graduated high school, but they've got a career and they're working hard. You've got bachelors, you got doctors, you just got this really neat mix of people of college degrees and not college degrees, but we got jobs and just figuring it out. And so that's been a really neat growth, is to watch some of our socioeconomic status change and almost change the poverty cycle of, I see people around me that can do this. I can get out and I can graduate high school and I can go to college, I can go to the Army, I can go get a job. So
what's your favorite thing about Moody outside of school, outside of campus?
Yeah.
What's your favorite thing?
I love the support you get all the way down. So my oldest played sports in Trustful, and that's because that's where we live at.
Yeah.
And so he played sports in Trustful. So my youngest has been all in on Moody. So he plays basketball here, he plays like football here, and it's so neat to be able to walk up at flag football and everybody knows you and everybody supports you. Hey, we really appreciate what you've done. And you don't necessarily get that in a lot of communities, or even those bigger communities, just because it's hard to know everybody.
For sure.
And so we're able to build a relationship with a lot of our parents. I know we have 702 kids right now. I know all of their names. I know a little bit about a lot of them. I know a lot about a lot of them, but I can at least know their name and they know me.
Yeah, that's fun.
And so that's been the coolest part, is just able to build relationships and the people wanting to support you instead of run you down.
Yeah. 702 kids?
Yep, 702 today. Well, actually, we had a student enroll this morning, so we're 703.
703. Is that? I mean, I know Moody's 5A. Is that the biggest that Moody's been? Maybe. Do you know?
We've been there was a year here where we were 740. So when we opened our virtual school, those students in St. Clair County, those students are their own school. And so they go off our roll because they're their own entity, got their own state number, the whole thing. And so we have anywhere from 30 to 50 kids over there. We would probably, if they were under our, like most schools, if they were in our numbers, it would be 750, 760.
Wow. Okay. So pretty much solidified in that Class 5A in terms of enrollment and
Correct.
that kind of thing.
Yeah. And we feel good about staying there. So
Yeah.
if you go down to kindergarten, to the kindergarten, if you take kindergarten first, second, third, they're roughly 180 kids a class. So you're
Okay.
going to stay in that 750 to
Yeah.
800 for a while. I don't see us going over 800 for quite a while, just because of the housing developments and what's available.
Yeah, that's that sweet spot. Like, especially, covering so much football. Obviously, I cover a lot of 7A, cover a lot of 6A, and I love it. I do. But, like, something about, I've said this before, and I've said it publicly, so I'm not offending anybody, but I love that Class 4A, Class 5A middle point. Like, last year, I've told this story several times, so apologies. But last year, I think maybe it was the first round of the playoffs, Kyle asked me, he was like, here's the list, where you want to go? And I had not been to Fairview. And John Carroll made the playoffs last year, and they were going to play at Fairview, and I was like, I want that one. Like, I know we had Hoover, Hewitt, Mountain Brook, Spain Park, well, Spain Park didn't make it last year, but they will this year. And we had all these big time schools, and I'm like, I just want to go somewhere I haven't been and feel a community and learn about it. And then have you been to Fairview High School?
Yeah. So I grew up in Hartselle, so
you're very familiar.
Yeah, so it's Coleman County's a cool place.
Yeah, well, and like that school, like I walk up to it and I'm like, this looks historic. And I looked it up, I can't remember now, but it was another one of those that was built in like the I don't know, 1920s, 1930s or something like that, and it was just stately, and I don't know, something about that level to me, school-wise, football-wise, all that, community-wise, is just, I don't know, that speaks to me.
Well, I love my time at Trustful.
Sure.
Don't get me wrong, I love that academy, I love those kids, still keep up with them.
Yeah.
But I remember sitting my last year, and I think we were roughly 1,700 kids at that point.
Yeah.
Okay, and I grew up in Hartselle, so it's another small town, right? So, I remember sitting on the wall with Dr. Stoll, and there was a kid that walked by, and I said, "Well, hey, who is that?"
Yeah.
And Dr. Stoll looked at me and said, "Well, that's so and so." I said, "Well, how long have they been here?"
Yeah.
Since kindergarten.
Yeah, no,
Oh, wait a minute, this is May, and I've never seen this kid before.
Wow.
It's just
a sea of people.
It's and that's what's so nice about here is I know if somebody doesn't belong in my building, I know enough about them, but it's just that's the tough thing about being those 7As and having so many kids. So
yeah, I mean, we saw it earlier. When I got here, we walked in this coach class. You knew those kids. You were talking to that wrestling kid. Then the guys walking down the hall with the mops and stuff. So like that's cool. It's very community. Even within the school.
Yeah, we work hard to try to get that. And support each other and. We see things around that we really want to emulate, like it's, Hewitt does a good job of student-supported games. Helena, when we went to Helena, that was that was just crazy.
That's a different place.
It is, and it's not only is it beautiful there, but you show up and they fill up a whole section of the students, and my assistant principals and I are sitting on the sideline going, how do we do that? How do we get that with our kids? Because the one thing about that has been a frustration for us in the last year is, okay, our student sections aren't as big. How do we get our students out? Well, then you look around and it's like, wait a minute, we got 100 kids in the band, we got 100 kids on the football team, and you look around and you're like, okay, well, our student section's not going to be as big just because what our kids are involved.
Right.
We did a survey with our kids this year, and 76% of the kids said we're involved in something at the school, which is really neat.
Wow.
But you don't always see them out and stuff. So we've been trying to work. We've kind of tried to emulate a little bit of Helena, as we called them, and said, hey, what do you do?
Yeah.
And so we're going to hope to start growing some stuff like that. And
that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I asked when I was here last week. I asked Charlie Johnston, the quarterback, about that game at Helena specifically. I wanted to know from him what that atmosphere was like for him, because covering a game there, I'm like, you're up on top of that hill. you feel like you're kind of on the edge of the earth in a way, and yeah, the support out there is crazy. Like I remember I got there, and I talked to Richie Busby, the head coach there, about this over the summer. We were just kind of talking about, it was last year they hosted Briarwood, and I covered that game. And I kind of joked with him. I said, I went to the concession before the game, forgot to bring in a water. And I was like, can I get a Gatorade or Powerade? And they were like, yeah. And every place I go to was like, what flavor do you want? And they didn't ask me. And I was like, that's weird. And they came back with a blue one. And they were like, that's all we have. Because the Helena's got that blue color. And he was like, that's all we've got. And I thought, he gave me a practical answer. Like, I'm sitting there thinking, well, that's cool that they're only going to sell the blue for their team colors. And he was like, it's also like, he was like, have you ever tried to get a red stain out of a white shirt? And so he gave me the practical answer
awesome.
too. But that place is, I don't know, it's just different up on that hill.
Yeah,
And,
it was phenomenal, man. It was really cool to see, because we've, in the past, since I've been here in 10 years, we've our reach is pretty well stuck together in all of our sports. But to be able to, what Coach Candice did, let's go to Oxford, we'll go to Gainesville next year. We went to Helena. It was like, okay, we want to emulate. There's good stuff happening in all these places. So how do you increase your expectations if you don't look around? If we only go to 4As, we can look around and say, oh yeah, we're better than all them.
Yeah.
But I don't want to just be that good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're elevating.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of elevating in these halls, what are some unique things happening at Moody High School, just in terms of academics, curriculum, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so obviously we'd spend a lot of time talking to our kids about what they want. We don't have a lot of extra units, so we don't get local units that a lot of the city schools get. So we have to be real strategic with how we approach our classrooms and what we offer. A lot of our community still loves ag, so we've got ag, and they do a lot of different things. We've got a greenhouse. We used to have a farm. We kind of shut the farm down because we needed the land for construction. But and so we'll get some of that stuff going again in the near future. But the big thing obviously that we've added in last year was that 411 network, and it's been really cool to watch kids that had nothing to do with sports or even academics. Like, I have kids that are a big part of the 411 network that I'm begging them to show up to school. I'm begging them and it's, now we go, okay, hey, we're filming this tonight. We're filming basketball tonight, or we're filming, the hope is that it expands to, hey guys, we're gonna film the kindergarten graduation. And the kids are showing up. And kids that they don't really have any interest in going to class because they want to do photography, they want to do graphic design, and they really don't care about this is probably not the normal educator. They really don't care about the Pythagorean theorem that they've had to learn every year since third grade.
Understand. Words guy, hated math, didn't want it. Understand.
I'm not a big, I'm a science guy, and I'm not a big British literature guy, and so I don't, and so it lets our kids get in the door, and so it helps our brain get out there, and they're a part of it, and they're excited to now be a part of the school. And so that's been really neat to watch in terms of our electives. We went back in with an A+ cohort with AP and College Ready, and that has been huge. Our teachers get training. The kids, if they get a qualifying score, get a $100 gift card. But the big thing is it gave us a focus. I felt like at times, being a young educator, it's like a young first-year teacher, right?
Yeah.
I really need to go back and apologize to some of those kids, And so you're this first-time principal, and you're sitting in the seat and you're making decisions, and there's stuff that I did or decisions I made. You look around and go, there was really no focus. And so the great thing about A+ is we're walking down this road. We want to be a high reliability school, and so what's been neat about it is it gives us a common language of, okay, here's our 43 kind of expectations in class, and here's the ones we're focusing on this month. That way, it gives teachers the time to talk. One thing that we miss is allowing teachers the autonomy to make sense of it in their class.
Right.
And so now we come in Thursday mornings and we have a PD time where we talk about just give the teachers time to talk and,
Sure.
and grow, because before it was you closed your door on an island at 8 o'clock, and at 3 o'clock you reappeared.
Yeah.
And all you've done is talk to high school kids all day. And so now we give them that chance to kind of grow and get better and say, okay, this worked, this didn't work. And so that's been really neat to watch is that development with A plus and creating teacher growth. I missed that. I missed. I'd heard about it. You read about it in all your classes, but I didn't really fully understand how to implement it in Moody until got back in this A plus grant.
That's awesome. You mentioned construction. Let's go there.
Mm-hmm.
I drove right through the middle of it.
Mm-hmm.
What all's happening and how is it happening?
Yeah, so man, this has been the neatest part. So we, Judge Hill, we tried to get this 5 millage for many years ago, with something that was a holdover from the 90s, and it failed miserably, right? Because
those are hard to pass.
They are. And the Moody community wanted it, and we looked around and we went to Judge Hill and we said, all right, hey, is there something we could do?
Yeah.
And Dr. Howell, superintendent at the time, said, okay, let's go talk to Talladega County. So Dr. Lacey and Talladega County had done this. People think that like Lincoln was built with all this Honda money. Well, it was in reality because they passed the local property tax.
Right.
And I'm sure Honda helps them. They're really supportive of education, but they built the building with the property tax. And so we talked about it. We said, okay, we got to rezone. So we had to redraw all the zones because they hadn't been redone. Had some weird, funky lines.
It's a chore. Yeah.
It was like we had a neighborhood that it got zoned to Odenville, but it's called Brookhaven, and it backs up where half the neighborhood was zoned to us. Yeah. So we ran a bus all the way to the back of Brookhaven.
I was going to say that back in, we looked in there years ago. Yeah, it's big.
So that got that whole community, and they went and looked at who owned it and where it was going to go, and they did a good job of zoning it. And so, then we finally said, okay, let's Judge Hill got the tax, the referendum tax, so that we can vote on it.
Yeah.
So what was cool about here was I went and talked to people about Lincoln. I said, Lincoln, okay, you're kind of you're the first one. How'd y'all do it? Yeah. Well, Dr. Roller, who was there at the time, had lived there, knew everybody, and he would literally go door to door.
Oh wow.
And sit and talk with these people.
Wow.
And I said, okay, I don't know that I have that kind of ability because I've not been here that long. He'd been there a long time, and he was also, if you've met him, he's super charismatic. There's a reason he was a state assistant superintendent.
Right.
But I said, okay, who do I have? So we put together a team. We said, okay, the city council was supportive. The major players were supportive. They all came in. We had a meeting and said, okay, what do we want? Yeah. And we put together this list and said, okay, we feel like we can get a new high school. All right, if we get 15 millage passed. And so we set 15 millage. We put together a list of what we wanted in the high school. The arts were one big thing that just they promised us a band room onto this building. They promised, but there was no money. There was never any money to do it. Yeah. So we want to take care of the arts. So that's where the Performing Arts Center became one of the focus. Okay. And we put together this team, and then it was just, all right, guys, we got to go out in the community. So I went and talked. If Grandma's Bunko group called me, I went. I didn't know anything about Bunko, but I sat and drank water and talked about the tax while they had Bunko groups. And so we were real transparent about it. We put the good out, we put the bad out, we put it all out there in 8 votes. It was crazy that night.
Passed by 8 votes.
8 votes.
Oh my gosh.
And so
because it's hard. It doesn't matter what time of year it is. Like I just covered Trustful's attempt at passing that one and it failed. I was surprised. I don't know how I should say that. I was surprised that it failed the way it failed. Yeah. I thought it was going to pass either way. I could have seen it passing at a 60-40. I could have seen it barely passing 8 votes. It's crazy, but I could have seen it really close. But anytime you ask for a millage increase, let alone 15 millage increase, I mean that I can't imagine. being in your shoes for that, being in Dr. Martin's shoes and Trustful, especially him being a new guy, coming over, people not really knowing him well yet, and him being like, we need this. I respect the heck out of that, because anytime you ask people to willingly pay more taxes, the gut reaction is no. But
Yeah.
I've always said this: do I want to pay more taxes where I live? No. But you almost have to look at it, if you're planting roots, if you're staying there, you have to look at it as an investment in your property and in your community and your kids.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and that's the big thing. And I mean, unfortunately, Trustful, man, it's a weird economic time right now with inflation and I think when some of those people bought, and I live in Stockton, so we bought.
Do you really?
Yeah. So
I live there too.
Well,
see, I mean, it's so big that we'll talk off camera what street you're on.
Yeah, the old side.
I'm on the old side too.
Yeah, so we bought Tyler Core's house when they left and went down. So
about this. Man.
but yeah, but we bought at a good time, and the rate was really good.
Same.
So like it wouldn't, when you look at it in the grand scheme of things on a yearly basis, what you get out from the school and the benefits, it wouldn't have hit me as hard. But if you came in on the back end at the top of Stockton, you paid $750, and your rate's 5.5.
That's tough.
You were already tight, even making that decision, and so I certainly understand. I think it was just maybe a bad economic time. The needs are only going to get greater and Trustful. There's only more houses coming up, and so I think over time, Dr. Martin's going to build the credibility to say, because he does a phenomenal job, and he's going to be able to say, look at what we've done, but we're out of room. I read that percentage, and I called Mr. King. I talked to him, and I mean, they're at 106% capacity in that school. I mean, that is crazy.
And that's what I told Dr. Martin. We did one of these podcasts like well in advance of all of his kind of. You mentioned going to the Grandma Bunko thing. Dr. Martin was going to all the neighborhood groups, different neighborhoods, and talking to them. And I kind of asked him, like, how do you sell this? And I think he had the right approach. I think it was just ultimately, I don't think it mattered who was leading this thing. Kind of revisionist history, Monday morning quarterbacking here, but I think the ultimate factors were the economy, and I do think in most communities your older population is always going to show up to vote.
Yep.
More so than some younger people.
Correct.
And I think hanging out at my precinct for a little while, at the time I came too. Now I came at like 11 a.m. So a lot of people are at work. They came right at 7, or they were coming at the end of the day. But I'm looking around and I'm like, I've been the youngest one here by far. And you started to feel like, okay, if this is happening at all 5 precincts, maybe this thing will be tighter, but
because it was a good turnout for a single question vote. I mean, they got a 20%. To me, that was
it was better than in years past.
Yes, and to me, it was the right vote. But your no's are going to show up, and so you got to do as bad as or simple as this may seem. We put kids that had a few periods off because of dual enrollment. I said, guys, I'll buy you breakfast if y'all will go stand at the crossroads with a sign just to remind people to go vote.
Exactly.
And so that a lot of the people, they're just Mason Myers, Carson Dillashaw, all those guys. They're big. I love them to death. They were goofy, and they're just having a good time out there. And holding signs, and so people are waving at them, and they're like, Dr. Walters, they're turning after because they know them all, cool. And so they're all turning now and going and voting. And we got a lot of comments of, well, I was just on my way to work and I kind of forgotten about it and saw those guys, and so
that's a good little strategy though.
Yeah, so I mean,
just send the kids out there.
It was. I mean, because at the end of the day, that's who's going to benefit.
Bingo.
I mean. Yes, our property value is going to benefit at some level, but it's about the kids. And if you want your community to stay strong, you've got to support the kids. So not all of them are going to come back, but they've got to have the skill set, the resources, and knowledge to come back and sustain your community, sustain your economy. And so ultimately, you're going to benefit from it by enhancing the education
That's
and
right.
what's coming back to you.
That's right. So how will Moody benefit? What all are y'all getting with this new school? What all? What's the list?
So the big thing was with the rate we're growing, we needed some room, right? So we were able to get a bond for $60 million.
Okay.
So the school, which was you triage stuff. You say, okay, this is an alternate. So like the gym was originally an alternate of, we're not sure we're going to have the money to do it, because at the time it was $550 a square foot. That's what the going rate for the buildings were.
Wow.
And so we got a good rate. We hit a bad time building wise, but what was neat was coming out of tail end of it. And so we had several alternates. Gym was an alternate. I've got a little PE gym. It's a half court gym because of safety purposes. Once I lock my doors, I don't want kids having to leave, right? So we had a little PE gym that was an alternate. And so we go to bid day, and it was the coolest thing to watch. They've been talking about, there's been one bidder or two bidders at these schools, at some of these places, and we get in there and there's 4 companies, and Doster, Thrash out of Mississippi, like big time companies. And you're looking around going, okay, wait a minute, and they're in the meeting, and they'd watch somebody write something on the outside of their envelope for a deduction, and they'd call. You'd see them call, and they'd write something, and they're all watching each other. And man, you're just watching it, like the deductions come down. And so we bonded at $60 million. So we had $60 million that we knew we had, and the whole thing came back at $49 million. And we're like, oh my gosh, man! Now we can buy a desk. We can. At that time, we were thinking, man, we're just going to take our desk over. And so now we can get new desks, we can get new furniture for the kids. We can make this place look like what our kids deserve. And so what it does from a space standpoint, and I'll get into this what we got in the school, but from a space standpoint, now the building that we're currently in will become a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
Okay.
And this is in great shape. We've taken really good care of the building. It's 22 years old, but it's in great shape. So they'll 6th, 7th, and 8th will inherit this building. Moody Middle School, which is currently a 4th, 5th, and 6th, which is kind of an odd range of ages, right? They'll become a 3, 4, 5, and more along the lines of the primary intermediate model. I don't know. We may change the name. I don't know what they'll do. But Moody Middle will become a 3, 4, 5, and then kindergarten 1st and 2nd at the elementary school.
Wow.
So now you have the space. We built the building to accommodate 800 students because we know that's where we're going. And then we also had the vision of eventually we feel like it may get to 1,000 at some point in 30 years. So we have an entire plot of land where we can build another 2-story just set of classrooms.
Let me ask you something. Sorry to interrupt, but is that how it works when you're building new? Like, I'm trying to figure out how to ask it. Space-wise, accommodating 800 students, you might be 1,000. Like, what are you allowed to build up to? Is it based on a certain year's projection?
Yeah. So what we did is we said, okay, we looked all the way through pre-K.
Okay.
All right, and we said, okay, those kids will be here in 10 years, and we said, oh, we see that we're not going over 800.
Okay.
Right. Now we may go over 800 after that, but we know at least for the first 10 to 15 years of that building we're okay. Well, then you can generate the revenue or get another bond, or maybe you go after, because there's still 5 millage left on that referendum that Judge Hill got passed. So we could try to go back after that to finish this off. But there's also, you can't borrow 100%, right? So there's still money that's sitting out there that we could be pulling eventually to finish it off. But we never felt like we were going to get over 800 kids during the first 10 to 20 years. And Churchill did the same thing. They had that C-wing plugged out. It's ready to rock and roll. Most schools do that. The weirdness becomes if you rezone something, and now the Oak Mountain situation, Chelsea, right?
Chelsea,
So now you get an influx of kids over to Oak Mountain that you weren't expecting, something like that. But we're never going to rezone that way. But that we just forecasted out of here's the growth. We're at roughly 4% a year in the city of Moody. So we said let's forecast that all the way out, and here's what we think we got.
Interesting. So what else? I've read some stuff like the current gym is becoming. That's what's becoming an auditorium.
Yeah. So you got a couple pieces. So one of the to me the coolest part now, and I love athletics and I love academics, but man, it's when your communities kind of not have been able to sustain the arts the way they want. I mean, my grandfather was the band director at Jacksonville State for 33 years. So you know, and but I have no musical talent at all. But I love the arts and figuring out where that pendulum, man. It's so cool to watch kids that are successful in the classroom and they're not going to be successful on the other field. Man, it's just their thing, man, and it's awesome to watch. But we said, okay, we got to save some money somewhere because at the time, $550 a square foot. Now, ultimately, we came out between $380 and $400 a square foot, so we got that. But we're going, man, where are we going to save money at? The gym we knew was an alternate, so we didn't have to build it if it came back too high. So where can we save some money? So our board president, Scott Suttle, came to us and Dr. Burns, and we're all sitting around and kind of started looking around and go, well, okay, we're not going to knock down the old junior high. Right. We got a gym. What do we have here? And so we all start talking, and the idea comes up between, and I think Dr. Burns just threw it out like, hey, what if we turn the gym into? We got 4 walls. What if is that possible? Yeah. And then, I mean, it's not 2 days later, Mr. Suttle comes in and goes, hey, there's a school in St. Louis that did this. It's the same thing. And we found one in Boston, and we found 2 or 3 schools that had done it. So we talked to the architects, and the architects at first were like, they're not sure about that. And then we show them, and they call, and they start looking at it. Oh, no. Yeah, we can make that work. And you wind up saving like $7 million because you already got the walls.
That's awesome.
And so we're turning the junior high gym into the Performing Arts Center. Now, you would never know because we're knocking out the top wall. It's not going to look like the gym. And I don't have the ability. God did not give me that gift to see that. So I go in there, and it's like, I cannot wait to see it. Right. But you're going to have 800 seats. And they're going to go up, and you're going to have the production up top. Yep. You're going to have a lower production, I think is what we talked about, or maybe we're going to bring. There is already a stage in there, so we're going to bring that out, and so we get that true. We're not going to do an orchestra pit or anything, but you get that true circular, the production, and we're getting 800 seats, and we're renovating that thing, and you're not going to be able to know that it was a gym. It's getting new siding. It's getting, so it's going to be really neat, and I cannot wait to see it because I just can't mentally see it. But man, you see the renderings and stuff, and you go, man, you can't even tell it's a gym anymore. So we're really excited about that. It'll be 800 seats is the only one. SEPA Center, Pell City seats like 450, I think. And so our goal was we want something that can, at a minimum, fit every student in the current building. So we said 800 seats is minimum. When we were originally out talking, we were talking about 2,000. It just became unrealistic with the money we had. Sure. But 800 is still a really good number. It's still a lot of seats. Yeah. We're hoping we can also turn it into obviously Moneymaker and bring in the Black Jacket Symphony and all those people, stuff like that, and just make money off of it as well and use it for the community. Yeah. Our elementary school has to go all the way to 280 to do any kind of production, so it needs to be here. Yeah. And then the 411 network can produce it, so it's a win-win for everybody.
That's
right?
Awesome. Keeping everything in Moody. Yeah.
The rest of the building, so the academic building, so we've kind of identified it. So you got a gym, you got an academic building, you got a Performing Arts Center. Yeah. And so the academic building is 93,000 square feet. Wow. It's got the storm shelter, because with what happened in Enterprise, everybody's got to have a storm shelter now, right? So it's built for right at 1,600 people. So it's going to accommodate a whole lot of people. So we get that we need an emergency, we open it up to the city if we need to, kind of like what Payne does.
Yeah.
And so we'll have that. It's got a STEM lab. It's got breakout rooms, the collaboration rooms. So we've got a couple collaboration rooms. We've got a big STEM lab. The band is got its own room inside of the building, with a couple of playing rooms, so they can go and practice. It's just the brass or whoever wants to go in this room and practice. We've got our own cafeteria, which is people probably go, man, what does that matter? We've been sharing a cafeteria with junior high, and so it impacts our schedule and really limits us because the junior high eats from 11 to 12. We eat from 12 to 1:15, but we only have an hour window, so
that's a rush.
It is. It's basically 22 minutes in there, and I get 3 minutes there and 3 minutes back, so they get a little bit longer. But inside of eating, they get 22 minutes.
Wow.
But now I can't change my schedule. So if we want like a unique guest speaker, I have to build it around lunch.
Yep.
Or we do grab bags or something, But so we get our own lunchroom. We were able to do some stuff that we forecasting out. So we've got a school store. We've got some just stuff that I feel like at some point entrepreneurship in our business classes are going to become big. In the Performing Arts Center, we put a classroom for a classroom space for like podcast, green room.
There you
go. With Pure Game that takes our pictures, start to get into some of those graphics that's the future.
Big right now.
It is, and it's the future. And so I feel like we did a really good job of forecasting out classroom and academic space of, we think this is where they're going. Here's how we're gonna accommodate that.
That's awesome.
So, but we built it for 800 students. We've got little cool spaces like the way we set up special ed is a little more efficient. In our current building, I just got teachers everywhere, so it's really hard to collaborate even in the hallway. So now we were able to pod the teachers by departments. So now if we step out in the hall, like we can actually have a conversation about English or math, stuff like that, which was really neat to be able to do. And just set things up right in terms of the internet, get out on the front end of all that, and the wireless access and all that stuff. So, but it's been neat. And then you have the gym, and so I've learned a lot about wetlands and permits. So
more than you ever wanted to know.
Yes, and bat migrations. I have learned a lot about bat migrations. So the backside, we investigated three sites. Where we wound up building was the most cost efficient.
Sure.
We really liked a site. We own 36 acres behind the Moody Middle School.
Okay.
And so we really liked the site, but then they started saying, well, you're going to have 300-foot retaining walls, and here's how much it's going to cost. So, whoa, no, that can't happen. So
that's a lot.
So the site we knew we weren't going to get into a ton of wetlands. Now, Army Corps of Engineers came out. It's a wetland. And so you got to have certain permits and all that stuff. So, but we managed to stay away from a lot of it by shifting with the architects. Okay, if we shift the building maybe a little bit down, so we were able to avoid a lot of the wetland.
That's good.
But to get the gym attached to the building, it would have been right slap in a wetland. And so there is a bat migration that comes through Alabama. Springfield just dealt with it. They thought, because they come out and they sonar it and they check, and you can't cut trees from basically April to October in a wetland because of the bat migration. I mean, they sonar. Springfield, they thought they found like some endangered bat that's only in the northeast or something. Turned out it wasn't. So when they
good for them.
when they checked, but it was really neat to read and watch when the civil guys came in and started doing it. So we had to move the gym over. So the gym is right next to the football field, which used to be a parking lot. It is the same exact size our gym is now. And we got some, what's really neat is all the electronics are now so cost efficient. Like when I bought my first 32-inch TV, it was $1,000. I bought a 75-inch for a couple conference rooms. It cost me $534. So we were able to get those digital signage, like the scoreboard, and all the scoreboards are now digital, and so seats 1,200. We were able to change some stuff midstream. Like one of the issues with basketball, and I love basketball, I played it growing up, but the fans just seem to lose their minds in basketball.
They do.
So we really liked what Jefferson County was able to do, where you entered from the top, but you couldn't get to the floor.
Right.
Well, it was impossible with ours because there's no upstairs.
Right.
So we were able to change our bleachers a little bit to put rails on the front, so now it's just not open access to the court.
Okay.
So some neat stuff, safety measures, but we were also able to have 40 feet for additional athletic facility. So what it's a 2-story.
Yep.
All right. So the downstairs is mostly weight room because I know you talked to Cam, our strength coach, we share all sports. So my 7th grade son shows up at 6 a.m. 3 days a week, and it is brutal leaving the house at 5:15 because the second lift this year, our superintendent's son, he's a 9th grader. So I pull up right behind him. It's 5:56. All right, and so I hear him yelling.
Yeah.
What's Cam yelling for? He said, they don't start till 6. And so you hear it. I don't care if you're the superintendent's kid. and then he looks, and Chris is getting out of my truck. He goes, I don't care if you're the principal's kid. So it's just, man, he's just giving them up the river. So, but he does all the lifting for all the programs, and I can't begin. And you may have been able to see when you're here, but when I first started here, I distinctly remember watching our athletic programs across the board, and I go, we get beat in the second half. We stay in games.
Yeah.
We got the kids to stay in games. We got the kids to win, but we get beat on the back end. And I mean, there was a game in Morton, Jordan, that I just sat in that end zone and I went, what happened? We were beating them, and it was early on in my second or third year, and I was, man, it's the weight rooms. And you start looking around and you realize your weight rooms are 3A, 2A level, and that's the first thing when Coach Gaines got here. He said, man, this has got to go. We got to raise the money. So we went out in the community, raised $67,000.
Wow.
To overhaul the weight room. And so Coach Cam does a phenomenal job with our kids, and so he lifts them. So back to the gym. So now that I've digressed, so it's the bulk of the first floor is a weight room that everybody's going to be able to use.
Sure.
We went and looked at Homewood's weight room, and I really liked their setup because they've added it on their school. Really liked the setup. We couldn't put ours on the second floor because of the structure. They told us it wouldn't hold.
Yeah.
So we had to put ours on the first floor. We're able to get out now and catch up with everybody in terms of recovery room that's attached and all the water baths, all the stuff. So we were able to go ahead and put that in there. We have a nutrition room, team meeting room that's also going to be in there. So if basketball has pregame, you go in there and eat. Now you got a kitchen set, you got what you need to pregame, and so we were able to put all that in there. Upstairs will be I'm really excited about the way it's going to look. So there's going to be windows. Yeah. There's going to be coaches' offices around. So football coaches. You got some other coaches that'll have offices that are going to look over the field. And then the football locker room will be upstairs. But we were able to add that on, which has been really neat. Awesome. It's going to take us a little bit longer to finish that. It's not going to be completely finished out right away. We want to make sure we got all the money right, the PAC, everything right. Because our number one was that PAC, and we said we're not sparing any expense here. So it's got to be 800 seats. It's got to be. We want it state of the art. So, it will be finished out at some point, but we're really excited about what the future looks like for all of it. Yeah. So
when y'all construction will construction, timelines will timeline.
Yep.
What's the 2026?
Yes.
Is that
we're going to move into 26-27 school year. So the takeover date on paper,
as of today.
Yeah, as of today that I was in a meeting at yesterday was June 18, 2026.
Wow.
So now I feel like they're ahead. They're going to tell you they're not ahead. But the second floor is being poured
So it's
tonight.
going vertical.
Yeah, so they've got the whole first floor in. The second floor is actually being poured at 1. They're going to start at 1 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Wow.
So once the second floor is poured, well, we did polished concrete, so it's got to sit for 2 weeks.
Wow.
And then once it sits for 2 weeks, then they'll throw that roof up, and then it's,
Fill it in.
yeah, shouldn't have any more rain days then, really.
Wow.
So,
That's awesome. You want to go check it out?
yeah, let's go, man.
All right. Appreciate you doing this.
Man, we appreciate you being out here, man. It's
It's good to be.
You do a great job, man, and we love showcasing our community, our kids, man. We love that you're helping us out with that.
Yeah, love it. Appreciate you.
Yep.
I'm gonna be good.